Good morning, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. It is currently 9:05 on the 7th of February 2018. And I know, I've been gone a long time, by the way. I have my coffee. Yeah, it's in a mug for like the first time in probably ages on this channel. I don't think I've ever put it in like a mug. While at uni anyway, because I've actually had to do it in an AeroPress and the AeroPress doesn't fit into the glass ones. So yes, I've got my coffee. I believe it's a Colombian, but I'm not too sure what I'm actually drinking right now. It's nice. It's very nice. I gave it four stars, I believe. Anyway, I digress. I know I've been gone a while. I don't think I've done a video since probably early to mid-January. And that's because I have been so busy working. I've had so many deadlines. It's been kind of annoying. But at the same time, I've just really been enjoying working. Like, so much. And I've just wanted to, like, spend all my time working, really. Bar Saturdays, which is basically my day off. Because recently I found a group of people on Discord who are fans of a podcast that I listen to, and I've just like been sucked into that community, and now it's really becoming like a thing. And we're getting like the attention of like the people who run the actual podcast, the Wikicast, if you don't listen to it, by Simon Clark and Dan Moore. It's a really good podcast if you haven't listened to it. I'm biased because like I'm a huge fan, but like, yeah. Anyway, need to stay on topic here. Yeah, I've been really busy working. I've been essentially, other than Saturdays, I've been working pretty much from about 9 o'clock till about 4 o'clock, which is essentially my full working like time frame, essentially. I don't do well past 4 o'clock. I don't produce like good work, and I work better on the mornings. I start at 9 o'clock because that's just how long my morning routine takes. But yeah, like, it's been busy, and during them, like, what, 7 hours? More like about 6.5 if I include lunch. During them about 7 hours, I have been pretty much working non-stop, really focusing on the work. But it's been really enjoyable. The work I've been focusing mostly on and putting like probably about 70% of my effort into the past few weeks has been the practical report that I've been having to do. So as a group, but mostly like individually, we had to actually write individually, carry out the experiment as a group. As a group, we ran an experiment on the saliva flow in man. So man being the collective term, man, male and females. We wanted to test a few things. This is all like research that has been done. It's pretty much confirmed in well-known knowledge, but we first of all wanted to test if it was possible to control saliva flow just through your imagination. So we tested vivid imagination, so thinking of actually eating the food, versus dissociated imagination, which was a 2D black and white image in your imagination. And we tested the saliva production of them subjects in across 5 minutes. So we did that, and obviously pretty self-explanatory. The vivid imagination produced a greater increase. The second thing we wanted to test, and this was the thing I was most curious about, because I'd done, like, the first part of the experiment was pretty much self-explanatory, like it's pretty obvious. The second thing I wanted to know was if a visual-only stimulus, so watching a video without any audio, would produce a greater response compared to an auditory-only stimulus, so listening to the same video but without any visual cues. And this was, so we had to control a few factors and look into it, but this was something that I hadn't actually read in any research, mostly because I wasn't actually looking for it, so I didn't happen to come across anything by chance. But what we found was there wasn't actually that much of a difference between the two, which I found quite strange. I was expecting a visual stimulus to produce more, like significantly more. We did see a difference. It just wasn't significant when we ran statistical tests. But they both did produce a significant increase from the baseline stimulus. So nothing. So this experiment as a whole was basic, but it really fascinated me, and I really wanted to work on it constantly and read loads of papers. I probably in total read about 30 research papers for it, which is way above what they recommend. They recommend probably about 10, and the really hard workers, I guess, would read about 15 to 20. I mean, I ended up citing about 15, but I read about a total of around 30 papers, just gathering as much information as I could from loads of different sources, and I was really enjoying it. And it's the first time in a long time that I've really enjoyed just sitting and working. I do enjoy working, I enjoy being productive, but there was just something different about this. And writing this report, I just wanted to get my teeth into it. And I was writing it in a way that I've never written anything before. I was writing it in LaTeX, which is basically the industry standard for writing research practicals and research papers, and practical reports. It's difficult to learn at first. It's a markup language, so you're essentially coding what you're wanting to put in the final document, and it looks difficult, and it is difficult to start out with. But I just sat in the library one day early on in this, it was probably only a few days after I uploaded my last video, but I just sat in the library for about 5 hours with a textbook on LaTeX and just learnt it and learned everything I could, everything I needed, so I could just type out a report, and just started doing it. And it's so much fun just typing in this cool environment and not having to worry about any of the formatting or anything like that. You can really nail down the knowledge, and you don't have to worry about what order your figures are in or anything like that. Everything just works, and everything looks good. And I'm so proud of the final outcome. The final outcome just looks professional, and that's what I love about it. So that was the practical report. I've had 2 other things that I've been focusing on that I've really had to worry about. I've got 2 essays coming up, so I've still got deadlines. But the 2 other things that I've been working on are, no, I've got 3. I've got 3 more deadlines. Oh, Christ. But the 2 other things that I've been working on is a grant proposal. So as one of my modules, we are looking at basically skills that you need to go into research and enterprise. And part of that, and part of doing research as a scientist, is looking for grants. And you need people to pay you for the research you're doing. So you need to go to companies and say, hey, I'm looking at doing this kind of research into this field, and this is how I'm going to do it. This is kind of how much money I'm going to need for it. They look at your application and they're like, yeah, this looks like it's going to be really beneficial to the scientific community and humanity as a whole. So let's give them the money, and they can do the research. So this application, someone's hoovering, I really hope you can't hear that. This application is really important in doing research. So we're learning how to write one, basically. And so we were given a paper. We're in a group of, I think, 7 people, and we're given a paper, and it was a recent paper. It was from mid-2017, so it's not even a year old yet. And this paper, we needed to look at it and read it and understand it, and then from this paper we needed to come up with a new research idea. And this idea had to be something new. It needed to be something that hadn't been done before, like you would if you were actually doing research. So that was quite, it was really interesting to see where research was currently. It wasn't learning about something that was found out about 50 years ago, which is basically what we're still doing. We're still we're still learning at uni stuff that was discovered 50 years ago. So it was very different looking at something so specific. Our topic was memory and learning, and we got a paper on memory pathways and how memories are encoded and consolidated in certain areas of the brain, and then pathways and the cells themselves. And we took that paper and we saw that, like, we compared it with other pieces of background research, and we saw there was a hole missing in the research. We found that no one really fully understands Alzheimer's disease and where it affects specifically, like with the pathways. It's not positive what pathways specifically Alzheimer's disease affects and where the symptoms come from. So we saw this hole, and the cogs in our brains started turning, and we're now basically, the grant proposal that we're proposing for research, theoretically, obviously, is we're wanting to stimulate engram cells, which are the memory cells in the hippocampus, for long enough using optogenetic stimulation, which is light, like targeted light onto these cells. And we want to stimulate the hippocampus enough during the early days of a memory being formed and encoded. Want it to stimulate that enough so that it's consolidated into the prefrontal cortex, and that memory can stay there, even though it would be in mouse, even if the mouse is suffering from Alzheimer's disease, which is something that wouldn't normally be able to occur. Like, it wouldn't fully consolidate into the prefrontal cortex. That's where you start getting memory loss, and that's the second thing. The third thing was we had to make an academic poster. Making a poster sounds like it's going to be super easy, and you would be wrong. Like, you've got to fit so much information in such a small amount of space, and it was something new to us again. Like, it wasn't anything we've really learnt in lectures. Our title was the role of ion channels in cardiac muscle versus skeletal muscle in the refractory period, that is. So we had to look at the difference between the two refractory periods and see where these differences arise at the level of the ion channels. So it was super interesting. The problem I had here was that it was a group of 4 in theory. It was a group of 4. One never really spoke to us. He was ill, and it sounds quite severely. He ended up suspending his studies, but it was just annoying that, like, we were like wanting to put work on him, and like he was saying that he was going to do this work, but he never was. He was always coming up with excuses. In the end, he didn't contribute anything. So it ended up being a team of 3, which wasn't too bad. But then, like, the other 2 weren't putting in the effort that was really required. They did all the research, but then they weren't putting it onto the poster. I had the poster ready really early on. This was a total of about 3 weeks. And I had the poster essentially, like, all done and the text box just ready to be typed in by about week 2. And the week 2 we met up and we were like, right, here's what each of us are going to do. The annoying thing was people weren't showing up to meetings either. So we got this poster, and basically after that second week meeting, I sat down, I did the introduction, all the supporting research section, and the conclusion. So I essentially did about 2/3 of the entire poster. So then I was like, okay, right, all that's left is for you two to do your 2 sections. Then we'll do this final main comparison section and together, and then format it all correctly, double check everything, and we can print it off and it'll be sorted. A week and a half I waited, after constant reminders of, this still isn't done. It ended up being the day before the deadline that we ended up actually getting this information on the poster. It was due this Monday, this just 2 days ago, and the poster it didn't have any of the cardiac information, which was the most important section. Didn't have any of that on it until Sunday. So on Sunday, we sat down and ended up like deleting half of it and making it increase in size, but we were rushing, and because the work hadn't been done. And that's why I hate group projects, because I could have easily done that section. I'd done all the research, but out of principle, I had to let these people do it. I had to let them do it, because it was a group project. If I did it all, they would get no grades, because I did it all. It was all my work. So I had to let them do something. But they weren't doing it. And I could have done it myself, but I couldn't, if you understand what I'm saying. And that was really frustrating, because I wanted to get it done so I could focus on other things. But I always had this other thing in the back of my mind that was... But it was fine. We got it done. I'd probably say it was probably the best poster there. Looking around at other people's posters, it was just better. So that's all the work I've been doing. I've still got half of the grant proposal. We've been focusing on the presentation side, now we have to actually write the application, so I've still got that to do, and I've got 2 different essays. I'm not out of the woods yet, but I can afford to relax a little bit, which is why I can now record a video. But I guess you could probably tell from this, oh my god, I've been recording for 20 minutes video, I am really, really loving working. And that's something that I genuinely haven't had for a while. Doing vet nursing first year, I wasn't enjoying it. The only thing I enjoyed about it was the physiology module. And that was just one little part. It wasn't satisfying enough to make me say I was enjoying it, enjoying the year as a whole. The first half of this year was neuroscience. I'm not a massive fan of neuro, so again, wasn't really that meaty substance that I really wanted. Now we're getting into the cool side of physiology, the way the body reacts to certain environments, going thousands of feet below sea level or thousands of feet above. The extremes of physiology, we're pushing the limits of the human body, and that is so fascinating. We had a lecture last week. We didn't get to have the second part of the lecture because of the snow that we had in the UK. Uni ended up being closed, but this lecturer, it was on cardiac myocytes, and it was just, I've never understood it so well, and it was so much new information that I didn't know about, and it was just fascinating. And then he ended up going on this tangent on how it's difficult to grow myocytes and cardiac muscle from just stem cells, because they change and they're so dependent on the environment. Nothing is completely ingrained in the DNA. It's all to do with how it interacts then with the environment. So they're now looking at 3D printing structures to grow these cells on, and it was just so fascinating, and seeing where research could go. This is research that's currently being done, and it's just made me really want to be part of that. So recently, in the past month and a half, no, probably about 2 months, I will get there eventually. In the past 2 months, I've really decided on the fact that I do want to do a postgraduate course, and hopefully, depending on how stuff goes, hopefully do a PhD. And I do want to do it on the cardiac system, because that's where I'm really passionate about the research that's happening. And for once, I'm really, really excited about the future. And it's difficult to explain, but I'm really excited like to just be part of that. And that's something which I haven't had in I don't know how long. Looking back on it, I was doubtful for a long time about going into veterinary, and I wasn't sure whether that was the place that I wanted to be. But I'd been thinking it for so long, like that. I'd thought since I was so little that I wanted to be a vet, that's obviously where I want to be. I've been thinking it for so long. And I'd put in all this work, and it ended up, I didn't want to admit to myself that was going to be for nothing. So I ended up going into veterinary nursing because I didn't get good enough grades to become a vet. But I was trying to convince myself the entirety of last year that vet nursing was like the route for me. And obviously it wasn't. And so I wasn't super excited about the future. Whereas now, I'm so confident that I'm really happy with how things are now that I want to go on and do a PhD. And that is cool. And it makes me so happy that, like, I've gone through all this trouble with mental health and stuff like this. And now, like, I can sit back from that and be happy and be excited about the future and stick into work and really enjoy it. And all I want to be doing right now is working. Like, that's what I want to be doing. I want to be reading papers. I want to be, like, learning all the time. And so I'm just sitting reading papers all day long. Like, they're relevant. But do I need to be doing as much work as I'm doing? Probably not. But I want to. Like, I feel good for it. So, yeah. 25 minutes later, finally got to essentially the point of this video. And my coffee's... I've barely drank it. It's been cooling down. It's now cold. I wasn't expecting to... I wasn't expecting to go on for so long, but that just shows like how interested I am and how much I just want to talk about it. It's insane. So that, I guess I should end it here. 26 minutes in, Jesus Christ. I don't know how I'm going to cut this down. Right, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed my spiel. I don't know how much of it you would have actually understood, but yeah. Okay, so this is the end of the video. So PS, call me Cameron.